Hi. So today we're going to talk about a way that you can make your home cooking a little bit more nutritious and a little bit more flavorful. So a lot of people are really interested in trying to cook from scratch and the slow food movement and trying to use natural ingredients. And we've had a lot of opportunity to do that with all the COVID shutdown. But now that things are getting back to normal, sometimes we just don't have time to cook a meal completely from scratch. You're working late, your kid has soccer practice, your spouse has a meeting, and you just don't have 2 hours to cook dinner. So sometimes those packaged foods and those convenience foods really are the way that you need to go, but there's no reason why you can't make them a little more flavorful or a little healthier. And there's a really easy way you can do that by making what we're gonna call vegetable cubes. So basically, all you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking vegetables and you're going to be cooking them and then processing them and then freezing them for future use. So it could be pretty much any vegetable that you want. Where this pan happens to be a parsnip that we're going to use. And it's super easy. All you have to do is just peel the vegetables and cook them. You can steam them or you can boil them in a little bit of water. You want them to be fork tender so that they grind up nicely when you put them in the processor. And as far as the size of the cubes that you use, it doesn't really matter because you're going to be cutting them up. The only thing is the smaller the cube, the less time it takes to cook. So if you were to cut, something like a parsnip up into pieces like that, that would be good. And the softer the vegetable, the less time it will take to cook. Parsnips, for instance, are going to be a long cooking vegetable. Squash will be long cooking. Something like zucchini or yellow squash, that will cook much faster. So then all you need to do is just cook these off. And I've got some that I've already cooked here. And you could put them in one of these big food processors like this thing here, which is a great workhorse. I've had it for like 27 years. So if you're doing a big batch, you could use this, or these tiny little processors work great also, and they're not very expensive, and they're great if you're just doing a small batch like we're going to be doing today, because if you don't have a lot of vegetables, if you try and put them in one of the bigger food processors, they're just going to disappear. Push it down a little bit, and the amount that you process it kind of depends on the way you like your vegetables. I prefer my vegetables to have a little bit more texture to them, so I'm processing them kind of like that. If you want something that is smoother, then you can grind them up a little bit more. You can even add a little bit of the cooking liquid into it to help make them smoother. But again, that's basically a matter of choice as to how you want the texture of your vegetables to go. And then all you need to do once you've done that is take a freezer tray and pack them down in there. And don't use the same freezer tray that you use to make ice cubes, because otherwise your ice cubes will taste vaguely of vegetables, and depending on how strongly flavored the vegetable is, that might be really unpleasant. So you just tamp those in there, and then you stick this in the freezer. You can cover it up with a little bit of saran wrap or cellophane before you put it in there. And then once it's frozen, then you can just pop them right out and put them in Ziploc freezer bags and store them for future use. So this one I'm using fresh vegetables that I'm cooking. If you want to be really, really sneaky about it, these frozen vegetables are great because they're frozen pretty fresh out of the field. So when you think about the fact that all of our vegetables get trucked up to Seattle and then put on a barge and then barged up to Ketchikan and then sit in the store for a while until you buy them and use them, fresh vegetables are just as healthy, if not healthier, than some of the fresh produce that we get. So in this case, I got the California mix, which has carrots and broccoli and cauliflower. And they're already cut up into the perfect size. And because they've been frozen, they actually cook a little quicker than if I had cut these up fresh. The only time consuming part of it is taking the bag and sorting out the carrots from the broccoli and the cauliflower. If you don't care, you can just cook them all together and process them all together. And it's so fast that I did this whole bag, 3 different kinds of vegetables, and I would probably get about a tray and a half out of this bag because I could save some aside. This took me half an hour. And doing it in larger batches really doesn't take that much more time. So if you cook an entire bag of cauliflower, it doesn't take any more time than to do these little 5 pieces. So it's really easy to do, and you can store these for months in your freezer and then just use them as you need. And so in terms of using them, one of the things you might want to think about is the flavor of the vegetable and the flavor of the food that you're preparing. So for instance, if you're making a boxed macaroni and cheese, you might want something that's really mellow, like a cauliflower, so that it doesn't overpower your macaroni and cheese. Or you might want to go the other way and put in some broccoli, because cheese and broccoli is a really good flavor combination. And so that'll really bump up the flavor and the nutrition of a boxed macaroni and cheese. If you are making a can of chicken noodle soup, throw in 3 or 4 different kinds of vegetable cubes, because it will give your soup a lot more flavor and a lot more color, so it makes it more interesting. This stuff is really great with ramen too. So if you want to make a top ramen, which is really easy to make, you can throw in a few of these cubes and all of a sudden a soup that pretty much has no nutritional value, at least you've got a little bit of vegetable in there. The other thing too is that if you process these really smoothly, they can blend in so that you don't even know that they're in there. So if you have maybe some picky eaters in your family that aren't big on vegetables, if you make these really smooth, then you can mix them into a chili or a spaghetti sauce or something with some flavor, and they won't even know that the vegetables are in there. So that's another way to make meals a little bit more nutritious for your family. And you don't have to just use the basic vegetables here. You can use red peppers, squash, zucchini, yellow squash, asparagus if you want. Any vegetable that happens to be on sale. You can even use a stronger leafy vegetable like a spinach or a kale, and those will cook just fine. They won't puree as smoothly as some of the other vegetables do, but if you are looking for a little bit of color and you don't mind texture in your cooking, then those are great additions as well. And so if you have a couple of hours on a rainy afternoon, you can go through a lot of vegetables and you can get a lot of stuff prepped for your freezer to use in the months in ahead. So this is a great task to do on a weekend that's not so great outside, and you can have payoff for the rest of the fall. So I encourage you to try this out and let us know how it went. Thank you.